Good morning. Tuesday, May 14th. This is the special meeting for the reinvestment zone number 2. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Secretary Huerta, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Dan Suckley.
Here.
Board members Libby Ayert is absent. Roland Barrera. Here. Silvia Campos. Here. Brent Chesney.
Here.
Joe Gonzalez is absent. Paulette Guajardo. Gil Hernandez. Here. Michael Hunter is absent. Jim Klein. Here. John Mattis is absent. Mike Pesley. Here. Everett Roy. Here. Connie Scott is absent. Okay, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you. Just for clarification, we will not be using the system for voting today. We'll be doing the verbal voting. Public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to make public comment? Ms. Huerta, did we receive any written public comments?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. The minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
We have a first and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed say no. The motion carries. E, financial report. TIRZ number 2, financial reports as of March 31st, 2024. Constance?
Good morning. Constance Sanchez, the Chief Financial Officer. How do I turn it on? Oh, there, okay. Good morning, Constance Sanchez, Chief Financial Officer. The financial report you have before you is for the tax increment reinvestment zone number 2 for the financial position for the 6 months ended March 31st, 2024. Our beginning fund balance was $14.3 million. Our revenues to date are $6 million. We've paid out $5,000. We've transferred $9.1 to our capital improvement program. We have $44,000 of administrative services for an ending fund balance of $11 million. And we also have that $500,000 maintenance reserve we have noted. The second page shows a listing of all of our CIP projects and the available balance to date. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. That concludes my report. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Constance, could you refresh my memory on the participation level of each of the 3 taxing entities?
Yes, I'm going to have to ask Heather to help me with that one.
Okay.
One
okay.
I'm Heather Hurlbert, Assistant City Manager. So the city currently is at 100% participation. The county is at 75% participation in Oasis County, and then Del Mar chose not to participate in the renewal.
Okay, so it's just the city and county now?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And the limitations that are set on the amounts that we're able to designate per project, are those set out by state law, or is that something we do internally?
So there is no limitation on what can be, I mean, there's a limitation on the use. It has to be by the project and financing plan, but there's no limitation on how much can be awarded to a specific project.
Okay.
And so...
So like today's project, when they say there's a maximum amount, what determines that maximum amount?
So that actually was decided by the board. So the developer came forward with the request. And so the board had already approved a maximum amount of the $17.8 million. Okay. Based off of the infrastructure that was going to be built within the area. And so so there's not a limit. The board can choose to reimburse up to 100% of the cost, 50% of the cost, or anything along those lines.
Well, if we decided to change that, we have the option of doing that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and a reminder, so for this TIRZ though, we don't normally we have not done in the past any type of business enhancements or incentives. This has been primarily for infrastructure, and so all of these projects are infrastructure that is for the benefit of the public, and we'll be talking about that during the developer agreement, but it has primarily been, like I said, roads, water, right, wastewater, or public amenities that are open to the public.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you. That's
Sure.
all I had.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Moving on to G, agenda items. So we have one item for action this morning. Resolution authorizing developer reimbursement agreement with Lake Padre Development Company, LLC, and the City of Corpus Christi, TIRZ number 2. Heather?
Okay, waiting for the presentation to come up. Okay, so this morning we have the development agreement for the Lake Padre development. This item actually came to the board back in 2023, in the spring of 2023 for consideration. The board at that time did award the incentive amount, but we then, it's a two-step process in the fact that we then come back with a development agreement that outlines more of the specifics on the project. So this was for infrastructure within Lake Padre. So just a refresh on what this project is. It is 102 acres with over 50 acres of commercial. It does include retail, a village entertainment district, along with multifamily, hospitality, and then potentially single family in the later phases. So right now, looking at the between sales tax and property taxes, the development is forecasted to produce over $7.5 million in tax revenues for the city when complete. So again, this runs down some of the amenities and some of the development that will be within there. There will be, like I said, the marina apartments, canal walk, hotels, a cove area, which are small cottage type buildings, shopping, and then the channel side, which is the single family. This is a rendering of what the development would look like. It's located there at Park Road 22 and Highway 361, right there on that corner. It does front the lake area that then connects into Packery Channel, and now that canal then also connects under Park Road 22 into the rest of the canals along the island and directly into the Whitecap development. This is the phasing of what is going to be proposed. They are still, I believe that they have completed infrastructure and waiting on some financing and stuff to kick off this phase 1. And so the request from the developer was a $17.8 million reimbursement related to the promenade, which will front the lake area and which will be open to the public. The pedestrian bridges, there will be 2, it's pictured in this picture here, 2 pedestrian bridges that will connect the north and the south of the canal. A golf cart bridge, which will connect the Park Road 22, connect into Park Road 22 and underneath that bridge to provide that connectivity over to the other side. And then the golf cart path and ramps, which will also provide that connectivity and will run along the Park Road 22. So it is a total, so what the board approved was a total incentive not to exceed $17.8 million. Again, the reimbursement, this is on a reimbursement basis, and so it will not be reimbursed until the infrastructure is completed and accepted by the city. So these are some renderings of that promenade area. This will be a multi-level promenade with vegetation, different walking surfaces that will go around that lake area. So staff does recommend approval of the developer reimbursement agreement as presented. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm available for any questions. We also do have the developer here if there's any specific questions on the development.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second, but we do have some questions. Board Member Roy?
I just have a question.
Sure.
In terms of you said that traditionally right now everything's based on infrastructure.
Yes.
But in the future when they go vertical, there'll be TIRZ money that if somebody applies that they can also get assistance?
So it'll be something that'll be up to, currently within the project and financing plan, we don't have a program that allows, it's primarily focused on infrastructure, whether it's city-built infrastructure or reimbursement to developers for infrastructure. But that is definitely something, as a matter of fact, it's one of the things we're going to talk about in one of our later items this today is talking about what other programs might the board want to develop to be able to include in the project and financing plan.
All right, thank you.
With no other questions, we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
Rebecca, I need to abstain. Thank you.
Motion carries. Moving on to H, presentation items. Discussion and possible action on the amendment of the tax increment financing zone number 2 budget to include an amount of $400,000 for design of Commodore Park.
Okay. So just an overview on Commodore's Park. So Bond 2022 had $1 million for design of the Commodore's Park. So the master plan design was started in August of 23 and presented to the public in March of 24. During that period of time, we did have public input, we had a public survey, and so that design that was brought forward in March was based off of that feedback and those top amenities that were requested by the citizens who provided their input. So we would like to move into design on this. Estimated design cost is almost $1.4 million. And so there are remaining funds left, not the full amount for the $1 million was used on the master plan. And so currently we are requesting $400,000 from TIRZ funds to be able to get started with the design. The design is estimated to take about 12 months. And this would allow us to get that design going. There is money in the 2024 bond to begin the construction. And so as we proceed through the design process, we'll have a better idea of what those costs are. And so I anticipate that we will be coming back to the TIRZ for additional funding to help supplement that $5 million if it is approved by the voters to continue with several phases of this design. So just a reminder, so Commodore's Park is on North Padre Island. It is there off of Commodore's Drive. This is a rendering of where that is, of what the park looks like. And so then walking through the proposed design phases, so there are several phases. Phase 1 would include the parking lots, the trails, covered pavilion, a playground, and then pickleball courts with lighting. Phase number 2 is proposed as a swimming pool with a splash area, a conditioned bathhouse, along with fencing around the area. Phase number 3 would be a gymnasium, which would, depending on how we phase this, would connect into that, would share that conditioned bathhouse with the swimming pool, so that building would be connected. And then phase 4 would be a community center that would go into that area. I guess that concludes my presentation. So what we're requesting from the board is $400,000 to begin, be able to award that the design contract so we can move forward with the design on that.
We do have a few questions here. Board Member Klein? Oops. Sorry.
Thank you. Heather, thanks for the presentation.
Sure.
Information came to us kind of late about all this, about this project, the idea of incorporating a skate park or an enhanced skate park there. Is it too late to incorporate that into this? I mean, in one of the later phases here, or is that going to be a separate issue? It would have to come before the TIRZ board at some point down the road?
So it wouldn't necessarily come through the TIRZ board. So we have received that input. We actually met with Turner Ramirez, who did the master plan, and identified a couple of potential areas for that skate park. We have included not necessarily, we've included some type of a conceptual design in this design, and then we'll have to look at how the funding is and whether there is the support to move forward. One of the things with the skate park, while we're receiving that support now, that was not one of the top rated amenities that was requested from the feedback that was received by the citizens, and that's why it was not included in the initial conceptual plan or the master plan.
Okay, we're thinking that it's still a possibility down the road, I guess, at this point.
Yes, right now we're showing it as a future amenity within the master plan, but as we walk through this and we see what the total cost is for all the planned amenities, we can look to see if that's something that we can work in at an earlier phase versus a later phase.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Board Member Pusley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the pool and splash pad will obviously be a city-operated function.
Yes.
So You know, I don't have a problem with approving that as part of this, but Peter, we may want to look at a moratorium on building any more city pools and splash pads until we're out of our water situation that we're in at this time.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, Councilman. This would be the second that we know of that's in the works. You know, the Hillcrest North Side one
Right.
is the first, so this is the second. But I think you're right. In the bond program, there are no other pools or splash pads, and I'm not going to be recommending any in the 25 budget. So
Yeah.
this is probably.
I don't have a problem with doing them in the future, but, you know, we had a discussion at yesterday's workshop about whether or not we were going to be able to allow people to refill their own private pools and the city pools. So
Right.
I think we need to look closely at that as we move forward.
Yeah, I agree, Councilman.
Yeah, and the pool actually is included in, as it's not the first phase, it's in with that second phase, and so it is something that, depending on how we proceed through this drought, and we can conclude it in the conceptual design, and then decide when it will be, it doesn't have to be necessarily
Yeah,
constructed.
and of course, that needs to be a discussion that the board needs to have, but it's something we need to seriously consider on a go-forward basis, because we don't know when it's going to rain.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Board Member Barrera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, you know, an observation from yesterday. I mean, I fully support the project. In fact, I make a motion to approve. But I guess there was a lot of discussion about operations and the budget of operation. I just looked at, we consider that when we enter that into discussion when we come up to the price, so that way we're not shocked that all of a sudden, like the questions about security, you know, those type of things. So just bear that in mind. Thank you.
Sure.
Board Member Roy.
My question kind of goes along with the same that Board Member Barrera said, is that, will the pickleball courts in that, first of all, are they going to be outdoor and indoor?
So the pickleball courts right now are planned to be outdoor. We could have, if we move forward, continue forward with the gymnasium, that could have markings in there that those could be some indoor courts also. It would be a what's been discussed as a multi-sport surface within the gymnasium that can be utilized for multiple sports.
Yeah, I just don't know if, how high, if you had some type of shade structure there, you know, because it's hot.
Yeah.
And I know that some of the other pickleball courts that we have talked about making sure we provide shade.
Sure.
But the other thing is that will that be contracted out then and ran by an independent contractor, or will the city run those pickleball courts?
We'll have to see. It's only going to be a total of 6 or 8 courts, I believe, and so I don't know if it would be, because it's not a full complex. You know, we look at that with our tennis complexes and stuff, but normally, like our baseball fields and some of our other sports fields, our Parks and Recreation staff handles those, and so we haven't gotten to that point, but I would venture to say that probably it would be managed through Parks and Recreation, through some type of reservation system, that kind of stuff.
So it could be free to the...
Yes.
Okay. I was thinking about the same lines of maintenance, because if you take a look at some of the other areas that we were talking about yesterday and being able to then those out or charge a fee to offset the maintenance costs.
Sure. And it is definitely something that we can look at. And like I said, we haven't gotten that far. We were just looking at the amenity itself. And so if it's something that either the board or city council would like to consider to set a fee for the use of those, it's something that can be considered.
So we'll have an opportunity to come back at a later date, and once they do the design, look at that. So, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Sure.
Board Member Campos.
Thank you, Chairman. Back to the swimming pool and splash pads. The splash pads, is that the water that's being used? Is that like recycled or?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And once you fill the pool, you don't need to keep refilling it, so it's just a one-time on just.
No, you would need to continue adding water both to the recycle, both to the splash pad and to the pool.
But not full, you know, once it gets full, then yes, of course, you do have some maintenance, or you do have to add some water, but just, I mean, I don't anticipate building another pool. I mean, I see it in the plans, but just something that, to remind the community that as far as splash pads are concerned, it's recycled water. And the pool, I know, we're getting ready to hopefully open up a pool real soon for District 5, which is very much needed. I know that the pool in my district is used constantly throughout the year. So it's a good way for people to cool off when it gets so hot in our temperature here. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? All right. We needed action on this amendment, correct?
Yes.
All right. We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
What was the motion? I'm sorry, can you restate?
Yes, ma'am. Motion was to amend the tax increment financing zone number 2 budget to include an amount of $400,000 for design of Commodore Park.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Okay. And just a reminder, so the next step will be to take this to the full city council because the TIRZ board can't amend a budget. You can make the recommendation. The city council will be the one that actually appropriates the additional funding.
Great.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the presentation item of update on TIRZ number 2.
Okay, so we wanted to provide the board an update on TIRZ number 2. So just a kind of a recap. So back in 22 and 23, the TIRZ was extended. So the first 20 years of the TIRZ, the primary focus was Packery Channel, the debt service related to Packery Channel, and the ongoing maintenance related to Packery Channel. So then when the TIRZ was extended, the debt for Packery Channel was paid in full, and so the focus in the project and financing plan shifted from primarily Packery Channel to other amenities and other needs within the TIRZ area on North Padre Island. And so we're going to walk through some of the things that are in process that were budgeted for, just as a refresher on what all is being funded through the TIRZ. So first is the Packery Channel. So even though the focus has extended and expanded past Packery Channel, we wanted to make sure that there was sufficient funding included for the ongoing maintenance and the needs of Packery Channel. And so working with engineering and looking at what we thought needed to be done on an annual basis, on a every 2 to 3 year basis, on a long-term basis, we felt that $1.5 million a year to be allocated specifically to Packery Channel was sufficient, which totaled about $36 million over the 20-year period. And so in fiscal year 24, the first $1.5 million was transferred into the capital improvements fund to be able to be held there for those Packery Channel needs. And we'll continue transferring money on an annual basis to make sure those needs, the money is in reserve and ready to be used for those needs that are related to the Packery Channel.
Quick question or comment from Board Member Guajardo.
Thank you. So Heather, do we have a like a schedule? Clearly that 1.5 is based on certain items, right?
Yes, exactly.
And or
dredging, beach nourishment, all those things.
We have that? Can we see that? I mean,
sure.
Basically, obviously it's not, in stone, but just something that shows this is what the I guess the plan would be.
Sure.
In expending these.
Sure, it's something I can share with the board. Yes, like I said, we worked with engineering and said, every 4 to 5 years we need a dredge. We have needs on an annual basis just for maintenance and things like that. But yes, we can share that.
That 1.5 is not going to grow in year 4?
It does. There's an escalator on that.
Oh, there is.
Yes, exactly. So it's equivalent of 1.5, but yes, there is an escalator. I think we use a 3% escalator on that, so that it totals the $36 million over the 20 years.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Okay. So then moving into the North Padre Island seawall, this is another project that was included in the budget for the TIRZ. And so there was an estimated project cost of $15 million. And this is for the structure that is along the along Elliott Beach that is there.
Mike Ellis Beach.
Mike Ellis Beach. And so this is for the ongoing we're working with currently is privately owned, so working with the landowners for the city to acquire that to help ensure the ongoing protection and maintenance and development of that seawall. Currently, the way it stands, it is not eligible to receive FEMA funding if there's any type of catastrophic event that happens. And so we've earmarked about $15 million for that project to go ahead and take ownership of that and then be able to maintain and improve that area.
Board Member Guajardo.
Thank you. So what is the status of those conversations that were had with the landowners?
So I know that they are in process. I know that there's several condo units along there that I think that we're in process of working with those individual owners because there has to be a consensus on that. And so that is still in process.
Yeah, there's, and while there's several tenants, say, per condominium, the legal interpretation is we just need to deal with the condominium manager or owner, so they'll help to consolidate all the, the single units.
Is it an HOA? I mean, they have an association?
Yeah, right, association or some type of management group. So we're working kind of directly with them to indirectly get all the signatures of persons that own the units within those condominiums. So,
is it moving in the direction of?
Yes, right. About 2 weeks ago, Neiman was telling me that things are looking favorable, because when we had that public meeting that Councilman Suckley chaired or hosted, it seemed like a daunting task to get, I don't know, over 300 or 500 signatures, but we got information that actually it'll be less than that because we'll be dealing with ownership groups or management partners.
Yeah, there's a stakeholder group that's been put together that some of those folks that were on that seawall committee originally are part of it, but it's really some folks that have representation throughout that seawall community, including several of the larger condos. And a couple of the condos already have it on their agendas at future HOA meetings to take action to support this. So it's moving favorably.
Yeah, so that part's looking good. And we have the engineer of record under contract already through an on-call contract service we had, so it's Hanson. And so Hanson's already doing some preliminary work on the structure of the seawall. And the goal, as Heather said, is to fortify the seawall, make sure it's stable from an engineering structural standpoint, but then also add amenities to it to really enhance it as an attraction to the city, to the city's beaches. Yes.
Thank you.
Board Member Klein.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think Peter might have answered this already. The friends of mine, surf riders out there that are out on the beaches all the time, say that this stretch of the beach has actually been narrowing quite a bit in the last few years. And so is there a concern now that maybe the engineering design needs to be re-examined for the seawall because conditions are different out there now than they were when the seawall was initially built or designed, I guess?
I think that's something we're looking at. That was the beach that was recently nourished, and so that beach was extended again. That's something that, looking at the ongoing needs within the Packery Channel, that we'll also be looking to see when we dredge to be able to nourish the beaches off of that. That continues to be a problem in that area just because of the way the currents hit there. We have constant beach erosion. So
yeah, I think that they mentioned to me that even after the most recent beach nourishment there, that one of the more recent high tides, the water came right up to the seawall anyway, despite all that. And so it's narrowing pretty significantly.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Councilman. I did through a lot of the beach area. Yeah, so not just that area. It was up by Zahn Road. It was all the way up to the dunes as well. And I will add, Commissioner Chesney knows, but the city's in the process of amending through the Army Corps our permit for managing the beach in certain areas. And one of the changes in the permit is to be able to move sand from one side of the Packery Channel over to this side of the beach where there is more prone to erosion. Right. And so we'll be able to move sand once we get the permit approved by the GLO to keep it more nourished. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, to Mr. Zanoni's comment is we haven't been able to move it laterally, and so part of the reason that there's a huge mound of sand right off of Zahn Road that we've been getting a lot of complaints about for the past couple of years is because we've been in a state of flux of getting that permit to allow us to move it laterally. So once we obtain that permit, which we hope is very, very soon, we can actually move some of that sand down in front of the seawall and to other places laterally.
Okay.
Mr. Edmonds, I know you wanted to talk.
make a couple of comments. So I was monitoring upstairs. One comment that I heard was about the Packery Channel and the dredging, and I think as we're connecting Lake Padre and developing Lake Padre, you're going to see more navigation there. I think there's going to be a greater need to do sort of spot dredging out there, and it's going to require more maintenance going forward than it has in the past. Regarding the beach nourishment, of course, we just dredged all what we thought was beach quality sand out of Packery, put it on the beach to nourish it. We're in pretty good shape. Now, that doesn't mean that the water's never going to get up to seawall because, depending on the conditions, obviously you get a big storm, it's going to get up to seawall. Mm-hmm. Hopefully not over the seawall, but, you can't avoid that. But ongoing, we're going to continue to have to nourish that beach. And I think long range, we're going to probably have to look for other sources, not just Packery Channel, to supply the sand that we need to nourish. But right now, we're in good shape, and we're probably in the best shape it's been in a decade out there.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay.
Do you have anything on the getting signatures, for the seawall? The process of getting designation?
Yeah, so we are working with representatives of each property out there that are advocates for this. I mean, most of the folks out there really want this to happen, and so there's representatives at each of the condos that is helping to move this forward, and we're working with them on kind of a letter of intent that, based on these limitations, they're going to send a letter and say, we will send you the easement if you comply with these criteria, and we're working to come up with mutually agreeable criteria, and we are expecting to get a letter of intent from all the property owners. And so it'll be a two-step process, but if we're in agreement on the letter of intent, I think that's a green ball to move forward on the project.
Sure. Okay, good.
Okay, bring the presentation back up. Okay. So one of the other projects that the TIRZ had budgeted for within the CIP is the Affluent Waterline Rehabilitation and Extension Project. So this is the affluent water line that runs from the treatment plant down White Cap Road. And so we had budgeted about $1.5 million for that. As a matter of fact, I think at the 21st, the City Council will be considering a participation agreement with Ashlar Development. So Ashlar was already working on the affluent water line that is going to go up into their property. So we talked with them about partnering with them and have them do this work. So they did agree to that. So City Council will be approving a participation agreement for them to allow them to do that work. So that is moving forward. So as part of the restoration at Packery Channel, the TIRZ did fund $7.3 million of the $20 million total project cost. So that has been substantially completed. If y'all were able to attend the ribbon cutting, had a wonderful, beautiful day to be able to open up Packery Channel. There's still a few little items that are still being done, but it is substantially complete. The Paper Street project, there are several areas on North Padre Island that are shown to have what's called paper streets. So those streets are only on paper, they have not been built yet. And what that does is that really limits access to land that has already been, a lot of it has been platted, a lot of it is independent owners, and so trying to activate those lands for development. So what this does is that the TIRZ is funding $7.2 million to go ahead and build out some of those streets that are just on paper. This will open up access to several of those areas that have not been able to be developed because of the lack of the streets and lack of access to those lots. This is moving forward. The engineer has been selected and they're working on the project scope. The agreement that y'all just worked on or just considered was the funding for the Lake Padre, the development agreement that is there. So about $7.8 million will go into some of those public amenities, including the bridges, the boardwalk, and the golf cart path. So the Whitecap development, so the board has approved up to $25 million for amenities, public amenities within Whitecap. Those includes the pedestrian bridges, the trails within the preserve, the golf cart. They're also doing a path there along Park Road 22 with a bridge that'll go over north to south on the canal, Commodore's Bridge, Encantada Bridge, the aqueduct that will be connecting from Laguna Madre into their canal system, and then the linear park or the living shoreline, which is along Aquarius. So a lot of public amenities that'll be going into that area. So looking across all of the funding that has been allocated out of the TIRZ for the benefit of the TIRZ area, currently we have about $74 million that has been allocated from the TIRZ to help support these projects. One of the things we will be talking about too as we go into the budget process is what other projects does the TIRZ board want to see within the 25 fiscal year budget. So I was ahead of myself. So going into the fiscal year 25 budget, some of the recommendations that staff has for the board is looking at mobility projects as we finalize the mobility plan, looking at some of those projects, and we do have a project for the mobility, to support the mobility plan, looking at additional park improvements, whether it is in the Commodore's area or at other parks on the island, and also discuss the business development support. So as I mentioned earlier, the project and financing plan primarily focus on infrastructure. So whether that is developer reimbursement for infrastructure, park infrastructure, water, wastewater infrastructure, street infrastructure. And so the TIRZ does not have any type of program to support any type of business development. We've had several requests of looking for those type of assistance, and so it's something that we would like to discuss with the TIRZ board to see if there is any appetite to be able to add that type of project or programs to the project and financing plan.
Board Member Pusley.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
Heather, these are all great projects, and again, it's not only good for Padre Island, but it's good for our community and our city as a whole in this region. And the fact that the city and the county have joined together to commit $75 million worth of investment into these projects shows our support for that. And I want to go back to make sure my statements are not misconstrued about swimming pools and splash pads. My comments are directed toward new projects, and anybody who's ever owned a swimming pool knows that in July and August you almost have to keep your water hose in the pool on a round-the-clock basis because of evaporation. And I don't care how much water you recapture on a splash pad, you're not going to recapture 100% of it. So anyway, all right, I just wanted to make sure that my comments weren't misconstrued.
Right, yeah, and that cover, I was thinking about the cover comment I made yesterday. I agree that it does causes different water circumstances at that point in the pool, but we are hopeful that within about 2 weeks we'll have recommendations to either amend what's in our drought management plan and at a minimum offer homeowners choices or options on what they can do. So we'll be coming forward. Can I add, Councilman, if you don't mind, since I'm on the mic here, Heather, on that slide on future projects, the pedestrian mobility plan, the MPO board meeting, I'm trying to recall from memory, but they had to reschedule it because of a quorum issue, but I believe there's 12 million or so from the MPO that's designated, and it's in this coming fiscal year, funds coming from the MPO to make the improvements for the pedestrian accessibility on Park Road 22. So that's another significant multi-million-dollar investment on the island, in this case coming from the MPO federal funds. So we'll be, once they have their board meeting, they're looking at a new date, we'll share that list of projects that they'll approve for public comment with the full council, probably at a city manager's report or via memo, because that's a big project for the island, the pedestrian mobility. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Board Member Chesney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great.
Heather, on the project list, I didn't see the Briscoe King in there for that. Is there a reason? that wasn't on that particular list?
So yes, this is, we have that, we have the $4 million earmarked.
Right.
But we haven't gotten, we've been working to try to get that project to be able to present yet. Right. So the money has been earmarked, but we don't have a project yet. We haven't presented a project yet.
Okay,
so that's why it's not in there, but the money is still earmarked.
I just didn't see the Briscoe King project
Pavilion
on the list that's already been committed to, and I didn't realize it had to, that's what I was just trying to clarify, because I thought it had been voted on and earmarked.
It had, but we haven't had a project for the development agreement type thing, so yes. Okay. But that money is earmarked.
Okay, and just for the board's edification, and I'd mentioned this to the mayor and Councilman Suckley yesterday, we will be bringing that back in, hopefully in the June meeting, to present more detail on that and make some additional funding requests on that as well. And then the other one that I was curious about, and it may be the same answer, didn't we set aside money for that second causeway for our portion? I think that was Councilman Hernandez's idea back in the day, and I think, was that set aside?
So that wasn't specifically, it is an allowable project, and we have kind of an estimate. What we did when we did the project and financing plan, instead of assigning specific dollar amounts to each project, each category has a dollar amount assigned to it, and that is one of the eligible projects within that infrastructure project.
I just would reemphasize the desire to, in some way, shape, or form, either earmark or, because we're designating a lot of millions here, and I don't want to run out of millions. And I think when Councilman Hernandez had brought that up, I think he had suggested a $12 million number, something of that nature. That second causeway, I think, is in play. The governor's making that a priority. The environmental impact study is being done. The hope would be that would be on an expedited basis, and I think we all can attest that there's a safety need to have that second causeway, and it's very much needed. So I don't know what needs to happen to make that more solidly in here. So I guess that's my question.
Sure. So what is something that the board could consider during the budget process is whether it is we commit to a certain amount of money per year that we set aside specifically for that project. Since we don't have a defined date on when that may or may not start, I don't know that I would recommend setting the whole 12 million, but we could work towards that so that it would be there available whenever that project were to kick off.
So how would that in the process work? Would we just, at what point would we have that discussion and make that motion and do that?
During the budget process. We could do that during the budget process. We're going to be doing that in June and July. So it's something that can be brought forward for consideration. Okay. And maybe then it would be great if staff could look at some sort of recommendation for us to start with, because I think that's a reasonable approach, although at the same time it could go faster depending on this next legislative session, how fast the governor really wants to make it a priority is indicated that he does. And obviously Representative Hunter's working on that as well. So with the two of them working on that and the rest of our legislative delegation being involved with the expertise that we have and with the stroke that we have, I guess is the word, with Senator Hinojosa and so forth, hopefully that would come about sooner than later. Sure. So maybe touch base with those parties and make a recommendation. That would Sure, we can do that.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Board Member Posley.
Peter, maybe we, in line with Commissioner Chesney's comments, maybe we could get an update from Chairman Hunter's office. It was about a year ago that he put in play the environmental study that has to take place for all that to happen. And if I remember right, they said that was probably a 2-year process.
Right.
And so maybe we can get an update on where they are with all of that.
No problem. We'll ask for one today.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.